Salofalava, this is Pacific Waves from RNZ Pacific. I'm Susana Suisuiki. Coming up.
It seems that it's people who've had one episode before, but not lots of episodes before.
A Samoan national dies from severe dengue fever. Also,
we were making a political stance of independence, but being rude and bad-mannered about it. I believe back then, being a politician was no excuse for that.
New Zealand's Deputy Prime Minister in Hawaii, and adventurers on a mission to build resilient schools in Vanuatu. The death of a 12-year-old boy from dengue fever in New Zealand has health officials in Samoa on edge. The boy was admitted at the Moana National Hospital in Apia last week and was medevaced to New Zealand in the weekend. However, he died soon after. The family travelled to Samoa last month from Fiji, where there have been more than 1,000 confirmed cases since January. Last Monday, Fiji's Ministry of Health confirmed the death of a secondary school student from dengue fever. I spoke with the University of Auckland's Medical Associate Professor, Dr. Mark Thomas, and began by asking him if dengue fever cases are usually high at this time of the year in the Pacific.
It's a common pattern. It's not necessarily the same every year. So some years there's not so much dengue at all in various countries, and in other years there's much more. So it varies, but yes, potentially there's increased cases at the time of the year when there's increased rainfall.
So one case in Fiji has led to death, and a local media outlet in Samoa have reported on a fatal case as well. How does dengue fever become severe?
It's said to be most commonly severe in people who've had dengue fever or dengue virus infection once before, and they've made some immune responses to their first episode of dengue, and then they get dengue again a second time. Or a third time, and the immune responses that were made to the first infection, maybe some years before, then seem to somehow cause a worsening of the patient's ability to cope with the infection, and that leads to death. Most frequently, when death does occur, it's due to the immune system leading to leakage of fluid out of the blood into the tissues, and the person can end up with not enough blood circulating around in their body, and their blood pressure drops, and that can lead then to all sorts of organs failing.
So what does medical care look like as soon as a potentially fatal case has been identified? I'm hearing that you can't take ibuprofen.
One of the other problems, as well as the fluid leaking out of the blood and into the tissues, is that also there's some damage can occur to the bone marrow, and you can run short of platelets in your blood. And platelets are tiny fragments of cells that help with clotting. So taking any medicine, aspirin, ibuprofen, or other medicines that might affect clotting would potentially exacerbate that problem of clotting that can occur with and bleeding that can occur with dengue fever.
And at what age or age group are people more prone to severe cases?
It's in the sort of period from about 7 to about 20, that sort of age group.
It's very young.
Yes. It's not older people. Most older people living in places where dengue circulates have had lots of episodes of dengue. It seems that it's people who've had one episode before, but not lots of episodes before.
Professor, when you hear of fatal cases in the Pacific, such as Fiji and Samoa, what does that indicate to you about their health system?
I think that fatal cases of dengue can occur in countries even with very good health systems. So I don't think, to me, it necessarily indicates a problem with the health system. I think it sometimes would indicate, possibly a reluctance to go to the health system and a belief that, traditional practices might be best. And it can also occur even with the very best of health systems. You can't necessarily save everybody who has dengue. So it indicates to me that there's a lot of dengue going on, and the very rare case who gets severe dengue is occasionally going to die despite that.
So just to wrap up our interview, Professor, what's the best way to tackle dengue fever and prevent it from becoming severe?
The best way is to try and reduce the insects, the mosquitoes that are transmitting dengue from person to person. And so trying to reduce the places where the mosquitoes are breeding, often very small amounts of water inside a sort of a coconut shell or in an old tire or in water that's sitting around on the ground. That's where mosquitoes breed. And when the season is very wet, then there's plenty of places for mosquitoes to breed, and then they will bite somebody, pick up the dengue virus from that person, have the virus multiply inside them, and then have those infected mosquitoes transmit it to other people when they bite those people. So trying to reduce the number of mosquitoes around is a good way, and also trying to prevent mosquito bites using mosquito bed nets or netting on the windows, that sort of thing, or wearing insect repellent.
Samoa's Health Director, Aiono Dr. Alec Ikaroma, has been contacted for comment. The Ministry of Health Office have confirmed to RNZ Pacific that Dr. Ikaroma will be addressing the fatal case in due course. New Zealand's Deputy Prime Minister says US policy is creating anxiety in the Pacific and is calling for dialogue. Winston Peters and a delegation of cross-party MPs are in Hawaii on the second leg of their tour of the Pacific. He's urging US officials in Honolulu not to overlook the Pacific region amid growing geopolitical tensions. Grace Fever is over there and has more.
From Tonga to Hawaii, the Deputy Prime Minister Winston Peters is calling for cool heads in the region. Mr. Peters is asking his American friends and Pacific family to hear each other out, opting for quiet, not megaphone diplomacy.
We acknowledge there is uncertainty and indeed anxiety over aspects of current US policy towards the Pacific. Part of that is a natural and regular consequence of a change of administration in Washington. Part of it relates directly to recent US decision-making on such issues as development spending and tariffs.
In Tonga on Friday, the Foreign Minister chastised Prime Minister Christopher Luxon for not consulting him before talking with world leaders about US tariffs. Then, during a speech at the East-West Centre in Honolulu yesterday, the Foreign Minister says the debate over world trade has been unfortunate and misguided.
The use of military language of a, quotes, trade war, end of quotes, of the need to, quotes, fight, end of quotes, of the imperative to form alliances in order to oppose the actions of one country has at times come across as hysterical and short-sighted.
Tonga's Prime Minister and Pacific Islands Forum Chair, Dr. Aisake Valueke, says when it comes to tariffs and the effect on the region, it's still early.
As you know, America is our best friend. We have the similar values, but there are sometimes, some economic policies, even though we look at it from economic point of view, we know it's not a good thing. But I think, common sense will prevail.
Tariffs aside, Pacific leaders have seen President Trump pull out of international climate change treaty, the Paris Agreement, and pause foreign aid. Hawaii's Governor Josh Green, member of the Democratic Party, says he's very concerned with the USAID freeze and that it's undermining the United States' credibility in the region.
I don't pull my punches with the administration. I personally would not have made those cuts to USAID. I think that it's critical to have international health programs.
However, Mr. Green says not all Pacific engagement has been reduced. No cuts will be made to Indo-PACOM, the Department of Defense Command in Hawaii.
The military budget for the U.S. is right now being proposed to decrease by 8% in other theaters, but for the Indo-Pacific, there are no cuts that have been proposed. It will stay fully funded.
James Viennes, Deputy Director for Pacific Islands Development Program at the East-West Centre, says Pacific leaders are savvy and resilient when it comes to change.
We navigate these tumultuous waters with calm and with confidence that we've weathered storms before. We will weather this one, and I think the key to that is working together as a region, as Pacific people.
Mr. Peters and his cross-party delegation have one more day in Hawaii before making the trip over to Vanuatu on Tuesday.
Australian writer and adventurer Hugh Kingston and Lawrence Moat, an accomplished New Zealand mountain bike rider who was left legally blind after a bee sting nearly killed him in 2013, are going to attempt a 4,000-kilometre, 90-day alpine adventure across Aotearoa. These celebrity adventurers are aiming to help Save the Children raise money to build climate-resilient classrooms in Vanuatu, which has been devastated by multiple cyclones over the past year and a massive 7.3 magnitude earthquake. Koroi Hawkins spoke with Hugh Kingston about the grueling journey from the top of the North Island to the bottom of the South, which they're planning to start in late June.
So I've been involved with the charity Save the Children for about 12 years now. Firstly, when I did a year-long circumnavigation of the Mediterranean from Gallipoli back to Gallipoli, and I partnered with Save the Children then and have continued working as an ambassador for them, increasing profile of causes and fundraising since then. And so the fundraising for Alpine Odyssey Aotearoa is for climate adaptation resilience projects in the South Pacific, and specifically to start with a project in Vanuatu, a pilot project building some classrooms using shipping containers. And of course, as yourself, your listeners would know, Vanuatu has been smashed by a number of cyclones in 2023. And then, in fact, I was there in November last year, and just a week or so after I left, the earthquake hit, particularly Port Vila, and so the fundraising is focused on that. I'd gone over to Vanuatu and Fiji to look at some climate resilience projects with Save the Children, which was an opportunity for me to inform myself about what was going on and the sort of projects that we might be able to usefully assist with the fundraising. So that's the purpose. We've set out to raise through Alpine Odyssey Aotearoa, set out to raise $75,000 if we can over the 90-day length of the journey.
And as the name says, Alpine Odyssey Aotearoa, I'm assuming you're doing the whole country.
We are. So this sort of grew out, Koroi, out of a journey I did in the winter of 2022, where I skied and walked the length of the Australian alpine country, about 700 kilometres, dropped in to ski at each of the dozen snow resorts here in Australia. And that journey was for an Indigenous literacy project, again, under the auspices of Save the Children, for First Nations people here in Australia, producing books for primary school age kids. And soon after that journey finished, I was chatting with my very good Kiwi mate, Lawrence Moat, who's based down in Christchurch. And, we got to thinking about, well, what about a similar odyssey, an alpine odyssey in Aotearoa, New Zealand? And came up with this idea. And indeed, what we're doing, it's a 4,000-kilometre, 90-day journey from Cape Reinga in the most northerly point there in the North Island, eventually to finish at Slope Point, the most southerly point of the South Island, and along the way over that 90 days to ski at each of the 24 New Zealand snow resorts. So we'll be travelling largely by bike, towing trailers with skis, camp equipment, etc. with us. But we'll also have some ski touring where we'll ski between some of those ski fields in the Alpine. And of those sort of 24 snow resorts, 4 in the North Island, 20 in the South. So we'll be skiing, we'll be biking. We plan to sail a yacht across Cook Strait to get from the North to the South Island. And so, yeah, pretty challenging journey through winter. It'll be cold, it'll be miserable at times, but we've got a lot of support, and the thing that will very much drive us when things get pretty tough, which they will, we'll be thinking about the fundraising and the support that we're getting through that. So, really looking forward to it. Lawrence himself is a bit of a legend, an ex-representative mountain biker for New Zealand, and we've done quite a few trips in the mountains by bike, by foot, by ski there in New Zealand. So I'll be chasing his wheel, and I'll be chasing him on the skis as we traverse the country.
How much of a run up to your start, and what's the training regime?
The problem so often with these long journeys is, you're getting life ready to go away, to put your business and be away from your family for a long period of time. So training's a little bit hard, but Lawrence is training probably harder than I am. He's 10 years younger than me, so I'm going to have to pull my finger out and do as much as I can over the next couple of months until we start on the 25th of June. So I'll do my level best. But I guess one of the things we've done is that in those first few weeks from Cape Reinga down, as we sort of get down towards Ruapeu and the first skiing areas there and Taranaki Manga is, gives us a few weeks where, even though it's winter in the top of the North Island, where conditions are going to be much milder than we're going to face further south, and obviously particularly in the South Island. So I'm hoping the first couple of weeks, the first 1,000 kilometres or so, will be an opportunity to ease my way into the journey and be at peak fitness as we start climbing bigger mountains and facing much more, if you like, difficult conditions in midwinter in the south.
And if people want to follow your journey, get on board and help out with the fundraising target, how do they get those details?
Probably the easiest thing to remember is if they just go to alpineodysseyataroa.nz, that will take them to the pages that explain everything that we're doing with the journey, and has the various donation page, the donation page link on that, so people can contribute to the fundraising along the way and help us reach that $75,000 target.
It wasn't the results that the Fijian Drua and Moana Pasifika wanted. Moana Pasifika were beaten by the defending Super Rugby Pacific champions, the Blues of Auckland, 36-17 on Saturday afternoon. Later that evening, the Drua lost 43-20 in Dunedin. Elisa Tora filed this report.
Moana Pasifika head coach Whaalongo Tana Umanga says they have not lost their focus, which is to qualify for the top 6 at the end of the competition. Despite the loss at the weekend, he says they will pick up quickly, fix what they need to do, and be ready to face the Brumbies in Pukekohe this weekend.
I think we have to be, no doubt, like every team, we'll be picking the game apart and making sure we get the learnings, and we have to do it quick because, we've got another game in 7 days. So, we do what we do. We'll learn from it, but we've got to move on and not lose confidence of where we're at. We're not here just to make up numbers, We're here to try and get to those finals just like everybody else. That was what happened in day one. That was our mindset at day one, and it hasn't changed now, and it still is. So,
Umanga said they were out-muscled by the Blues, and the team lost their focus on their game plan, which led to their loss at Eden Park.
I think, just up front, we were probably out-muscled today. It's pretty obvious. And we've shown that we've got that in us. And I think just sticking to our plan. We had a plan and they pressured us, and then we just went away from that a little bit. And it's really hard, when you're trying to play against, the reigning champions, and we're trying to play their game against them.
Meanwhile, Fijian Drua head coach Glenn Jackson says the team just gave too much away against the Highlanders early in the game.
We just didn't start the game. We've talked about it all week, about starting well, and when you give a team as good as the Highlanders, or any team, doesn't matter if they're good or not, a 5-point head start after a minute 30, it makes it a little bit hard, and then to go score after half-time, I thought it was good credit for the boys to fight back, and we fought back pretty well in that second half.
Jackson says the team has been working hard to get the results, but the competition is tougher than what it used to be in the last 3 years.
I know they've been trying really hard. I know it's a young group of men that we're trying to gel together in my first year here. It's disappointing our results ain't going the way that we wanted to after a reasonable start in the competition. This competition now, is a lot different to it was the last 3 years, and just taking those opportunities that were offered to us and not taking them means that you're not going to get the results against any team.
Drua will host the Waratahs in Lautoka on Saturday in what is now a must-win game if they want to secure a top 6 finish. Moana Pasifika hosts the Brumbies later the same afternoon. Other results from the weekend. The Crusaders beat the Hurricanes 31-24 in Wellington on Friday night, sending them to the top of the points table, ahead of previous leaders the Chiefs, who dropped to second following their 21-14 defeat at the hands of the Waratahs. The Brumbies beat the Reds 39-26 to sit at third spot, ahead of the Queenslanders on a better points average.
That's Pacific Waves for today. For all episodes, head over to rnz.co.nz/Pacific. We're also on Spotify, Apple and iHeartRadio. From myself and the RNZ Pacific team, tō whā, sui fua.